Hello and welcome to Burby Reads. Today we'll be reading part 3, The Myriad Cultures of the Continent. We'll be reading the first 3 projects: the Cernol Clan by Cantaloops, the Artificial Soul Project by myself, and the Church of Ainzaiss, created by Ducc. We will start with the Cernol Clan. Long ago, there was a Quendulian minor deity of change known as Scorpio. Often manifesting as a large red snake, it frequently appeared near rivers and offered deals to mortals and other creatures, offering to change their natures. One day, a particular mortal came to Scorpio, seeking it out instead of coming upon it naturally as most did. The mortal was unhappy with her natural form and asked that Scorpio change her sex to that which was truly hers. The deity agreed on the condition that she bind her family to him. She agreed and gained a new form, running away from her family, who had wanted her to marry a woman she did not love. Though Scorpio had originally desired to steal away her children once she had them, and such was the deal, he became enamored with the girl, and instead stole her away soon after the deal. From their union a child was produced, endowed with the power of Scorpio, given a name derivative of the deity's name. At the time, its name changes frequently in written records, with a similarity to its love's name. From this the child of Cernol Clan sprang. The clan rose in power among others quickly, for they could employ the powers of Scorpio in order to change what had been set in stone. Instead of dying normally, the Cernols would become snakes and live a second life in service of Scorpio on a divine scale. In human life, their mission was to convert others to worship of the great deity, and this they did successfully, amassing a number of followers and power. Circumstances changed, however, when the deity was drawn into a fierce rivalry. For each force of nature there must be an equal and opposite, and Scorpio was no exception, being parallel to Taurus, a goddess of stasis. For millennia, the two had coexisted despite their clashing natures, but the tension rose and rose, and finally it reached a breaking point. As the rainforests began to grow slowly once again, Taurus, believing it was Scorpio's doing, raged against it and its apparent disruption of the natural order, a betrayal of their peace. The two, already natural enemies, needed no greater excuse to fight. Scorpio, bringing its army of spirits of the clan's dead, had a long and brutal battle with Taurus. Local accounts, which almost certainly have not survived to the present, talk of 2 snakes chasing each other in an endless circle. An Ouroboros it was called. At long last, Taurus lay near defeat, their fight having reached across the continent until they neared the western coast. What Scorpio did not know was that it could not defeat its enemies so easily. The two were tied together in destiny, and one could not exist without the other. As the goddess of stasis lay dying, her soul faded away from her body, but did not dissipate. It sought a vessel, and in its lingering malice, it chose the most powerful vessel nearby, Scorpio itself. As Scorpio's final act, that was wholly its own, it made a desperate charge across the sea that left remnants of its power scattered throughout the sea, bringing with it the core of the Cernol Clan, its direct descendants. It bade them live in Vanavevra and bring ruin to the people, to let the world know its newfound suffering that it would endure for many centuries to come. The event left the clan divided between two continents, with the remnants on Quengelai left to grapple with being abandoned by their deity. They eventually became a respectable clan, but never once enjoyed the power they once had. The clan in Vanavevra split into many branches over disagreements of faith and dispersed into the population, but preserved their unique abilities. Many of the branches also preserved the deity's final will. Scorpio itself ended up on Althea, corrupted and incomprehensible. Its power was such that it refused the curse, but never completely, and thus it hosted an eternal internal conflict, becoming not Scorpio or Taurus, but something in between. The elves saw it as a cursed being, with good reason, and banished it to Limbo along with the Dark Elves, where it made its home and began to bide its time. For an able host to fall far beneath the waters, for a member of its clan to claim their birthright and carry out their duty, for it to amass enough power to manifest outside of Limbo as a tiny child, for all to know its pain, and all to suffer. Now we will move on to the artificial soul project. Day 1. Hello. I am one of many apprentices working on this project along with Master Aachen and Grandmaster Naim. I was told to write down things I considered interesting in the day-to-day work of our project. I'm not sure why, but Grandmaster Naim said it would help me. Day 2. I finally understand what Grandmaster Naim meant. 2 pages have seemingly been ripped out by force. Day 5. There are many things that I still don't understand, but I believe what we are doing here is for the greater good of humanity. The Artificial Soul Project is an attempt at combining artificing with some form of necromancy that focuses on the souls of people. The runic symbols fill me with dread every time I look at them, and the screams, God, the screams. They will haunt me for the rest of my life, no doubt. It's all for the greater good. All for the greater good. Day 11. We have made a major breakthrough today, but the gods will never forgive the sins committed in these halls. Due to a lack of material, a young child was used to sacrifice this time. Every day I am simply thankful that I have this old book to write this down in. The child was successfully extracted. Their soul was young, spry, and with many of the damages that older materials have begun to display. It was also left with very few imprints. I believe with this we can begin to mold it into what we need. I hope so, at least. Day 12. The initial molding failed, and the soul scattered. The material was discarded into the furnaces. Day 40. The 22nd child material was sacrificed today. Their soul was extremely pure, as they were just 2 years old. It is all for the greater good. Day 41. Success. The material's purity was indeed high enough to allow for the initial molding. The first artificial soul has been created. 5 more to go. Just 5 more to go, and then we can begin the true purpose of this entire God-forsaken thing. I can barely believe it. A month ago, I could not have seen myself cheering at the death of a 2-year-old child. But I suppose once you are exposed to something for long enough, it all seems to fade away. Day 49. The 6th and final material was refined today. However, Grandmaster Naim was caught in one of the molding rooms. His old and frail soul was torn apart instantly. Serves him right for roping us into this entire mess. Today, we have revealed the initial prototypes of the hollow golem cores that will be used to store the artificial souls. They appear to be purple orbs of some kind. They claimed that even if the bodies are destroyed, the orbs in question will not be destroyed. They appear to be the creation of Master Aken, and I do not doubt his skills. But is there anything that can resist Draken magic with just physical might? I suppose the field tests will have to show us those results. Next up are the bodies. Day 102. Things have been going slowly. While we have made many bodies, many of the materials cannot contain the power of the magic we want to enchant them with. Is the human shape simply too weak to contain such power? We'll continue. There must be a way. Day 132. If it were not for this journal, I would have lost track of time and probably my sanity in the process. We made our first human shape. No, not human. Giant. We have dubbed it Clypeus, a 9-foot-tall giant. I'll describe the specifications for it more accurately when I have the time. Now I shall get my first good night rest in almost a week. Day 134. Clypeus specifications. Shield of Resistance. A heavily enchanted shield with a high amount of resistance to magic and corrosive substances. It's been crafted with the help of Master Aken and 2 master smiths, as well as a master metallurgist named Urfenthal, a dwarf. Greater heavy body. So far, this is the only humanoid shape that can contain the power of the so-called soul gems without breaking down. Just to be safe, it has also been giving several repairing enchantments that will pull mana out of the world around it to heal any injuries that might occur. Clypeus is not an offensive force, but it is meant to act as a protective support on the field. To this extent, it has been equipped with the following magics. Lord's Prayer, a magic of holy origins, recorded by a church belonging to the elves prior to the shattering of their kingdoms. It casts a divine field around the caster that heals and refreshes both mind and body. With a longer duration, it could even heal larger wounds, perfect for treating survivors of a Draken attack. Golem's Restoration, a magic of artificer origin, though who created it we cannot be sure. There were scattered notes about it where it was found, most of it burned and the golem's restoration partially destroyed. A lot of time was spent to research how to remake it. It appears to heal other golem creatures, and those who have an imposed limit on their stay may even remain alive for longer under its influence. Day 192. The remaining golems have begun final testing today. We scrapped any pretense of what Clypeus had. The rest of the golems are meant to be light on the weight and heavy on the attack. They cannot be built in the same way. This is why we have decided to base them on various monsters. Day 202. Today I will list the final golems and their specifications. Second golem, Princeps. Princeps was based on a more traditional Spider-Woman type monster, sporting the lower body of a spider save the giant abdomen, which was refined to be more in the shape of an ant. Sporting impressive mobility and speed, armed on both arms with blades that spurt out what we call blade aura. Simply mana transformed into a physical representation of blades that extend beyond a normal weapon. Third and fourth golem, Hallowed Twins. The Hallowed Twins were based on long-range magic attack golems. Their specialty was being in the manipulation of raw mana. In truth, they are more or less just two metal raw orbs with attached cannons to them. Most of the power in the soul gem is dedicated to said cannons, though their efficiency is still questionable. They are not used yet, after all. Short-term firing has proven to be stable, though. The fifth golem, Adenik. Adenik is more in line with the traditional swordsman, except he's based on something known as a hecatonchire, beasts akin to titans with countless arms and heads. Of course, this was merely the inspiration. Adenik himself is a four-legged metal beast with the upper body of a normal human, if so enlarged, and a total of 10 arms holding 10 blades of different forms. Adenik is by far the least armored golem, which might prove to be problematic. Sixth. Okay. The page appears to be ripped and slightly stained with blood. Post summary. The artificial soul project was deemed a failure as the sixth and final golem went berserk upon its creation and fled the caves where the golems were being held, far into the north somewhere, slaying 90% of the remaining apprentices and masters who worked on their creation. All other golems remained inactive, but an unknown wisp appeared to be resting with them all, waiting for their original purpose, the awakening of something great enough to require their help. Over time, all but the first golem fled, being driven insane by something unknown, be this their own soul's deterioration due to their powerful weaponry or some other reason, but they ended up scattered across the continent, destroyed by great heroes and adventurers, their soul gems traveling here and there in various uses. The original purpose long forgotten. One of these soul gems is currently known to be possessed, and the rest of the 5 are still in unknown locations, yet to be unleashed upon the world. While the first golem still slumbers, waiting for its final awakening. Mocker. The time has come. Dark times are ahead. Must protect, 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 protect. And so we move on to today's final choice. Ainzaiss, Church of the Profane Lord. Overview. The Church of Ainzaiss is a small religious order that has domain over a small group of towns, which sit at the very edge of the scorched Elysium. The Cathedral of Cernol, a towering monument which plunges deep into the abyss and rises along towering cliffside houses, the main proponents of the church. The Grand Cardinals of the Profane Lord of Purity, Meanlitz. Their corrupted knights and profane saints are constantly watching over the struggling towns that border the cathedral, fending off the endless roaming monsters in grand parties known as the Endless Hunts. Funded by a group of pilgrims that had long made the excursion to worship at the edge of the abyss, the church has grown slowly but surely, taking in new members and making their presence in the harsh wasteland known. Proximity to the Elysium has caused a deep and lasting problem within the church. From a slow rot of their minds and sanity to a decay into writhing monsters that must be put down by the knights, or dark gifts which grant them odd powers. Rank in the church is determined by the survival of the corrupting influence of the Elysium, and every year the proud disciples of the church make their way deep into the Elysium, seeing if they are pure enough to be considered worthy as an ordained priest or knight. The church worships the profane lord, a reclusive god which bestows upon them blessings and curses in equal measure. The souls of the monsters and humans that wander into the territory of the church are offered in great measure, and in exchange abilities and resistance to the curse of deletion are believed to be granted. This makes it a common practice for knights of the church to become hopeful saints, traveling the world and devouring souls to hopefully attain the prized title of profane saint. The church runs two small towns near the cathedral, those being Kurtzar and Ludwin, who are governed by archbishops and have small groups of knights led by profane saints with incredible abilities, who over hundreds of years have led their hunts to slay monsters about their tender holdings. They are also responsible to cull the villagers who fall prey to the Legion's corrupting influence, killing the monstrous entities they devolve into before harm can be dealt to their surroundings. About the world, to be a member of the Church of Ainzaiss is at best of a black mark upon you, and at worst to make yourself an active menace. Their roaming, hopeful saints, armed with weapons which devour souls, and malformed bodies rotted by deletion, make the church a dangerous entity to deal with in any capacity. Traditions. Ainzaiss is a ruler of the small domain deep within deletion, a very traditional society. That is heavily ritualized, both to fight off the rot that afflict all living things in the area and to more thoroughly worship their lord. A frequent staple of the area is the practice of the descent into the abyss, where the church makes the way to the lowest point that can be feasibly reached within deletion, and reside there for a day, letting what they feel to be sacred effects of deletion weed out their impurities. Many die on these expeditions, and many more lose their sanity or are disfigured. Rituals to offset the rot that inflicts all residents of Ainzaiss are frequent. They include prayers and gifts to the profane lord, or part of his soul that have been attained to deep rituals done by the cardinals of the church. This has lessened the effect on the rot, and may, if done with enough devotion and practice, nearly nullify its effects. Soldiers in the church typically offer the souls of the monsters and men they have killed to their lord, in exchange becoming resident to the rot, and with enough time they may ascend to the rank of a saint. Those seemingly immune to the effects of deletion, and although made monstrous by endless exposure, have an unlimited lifespan, wielding powerful weapons crafted from thousands of souls merged with the soul of the profane lord. To be a saint is considered to be the second highest honor in the church, below that only of the 7 cardinals. The 7 cardinals are determined through 2 metrics: their utility to the church and their resistance to the profane rot. In general, cardinals must be nearly immune to the corruption of deletion, and have done many great deeds for the church. From heroics on the endless hunts to great feats of leadership, in exchange they have been granted great gifts by their god, and have lived for many hundreds of years. Deletion's effects have had their toil, and they have grown monstrous, barely retaining their own sanity. The endless hunts. There are 5 endless hunts in the wastes of deletion, constantly patrolling the meager places the church resides. In each hunt there are 500 ordained knights and a profane saint. They fend off the corruption of their surroundings by the constant sacrifice of the souls of demons and monsters in Ducc ceremonies, feeding their blades and honing their abilities constantly. Ordained knights wield laden-waste weapons, crafted with a fragment of the soul of the profane lord, mainlets. They feed off of the souls of the creatures that they are plunged into, gaining strength. With the addition of the Ducc ceremony, they can devour the entire souls of presented corpses, bestowing gifts upon their wielder. Ducc weapons are frequently esoteric and can be very powerful, wielding fiery poisons or acids that can chew through the bone in a second. Their armor is similarly as important. An ordained knight wears a finely crafted full plate armor, enchanted to ward off the attacks of lesser monsters. A long cloak completes their appearance. Outside of deletion they are rarely seen, as they lurk in the church's territory. Deep inside deletion's dark scar, they are very rarely encountered, nearly to the point of being mythical in status. Profane saints have devoured thousands of souls and have journeyed into the wider world to bring further recognition to the church. Their abilities rival that of a minor god, with weapons that can fell a greater demon. The endless exposure to deletion and gifts of their god have turned them into gigantic creatures, with graceful, sinewy motions, and incredible speed and power. Their armor has in many cases fused into their bodies, and their minds were constantly at the point of collapse. Their weapons are as strong as fear itself, varying in nature and effect. Laden-wise weapons that have devoured legions of monsters and grown by themselves monstrous. To challenge a profane saint, and to challenge the facsimile of the profane lord itself, and even a dragon would do well to be wary of their presence. that concludes today. That concludes today's reading. Come back another time for further readings. Good day and goodbye.